I need to start this podcast with an apology to the guest. During my conversation, we discussed releasing the episode ahead of an event. However, directly after our interview, I caught the flu. Then came the holiday season. Then directly after that, more illness. That is why the episode is releasing in chronological order instead of the time we discussed in the interview. However, my mismanagement of time and health does not make this interview any less interesting. Jason McAdam is a stand-up comedian and manager of the comedy room Rose City Comedy on Front Street in Tyler, Texas. We discuss his journey on the way to becoming a comedian, his involvement in Rose City Comedy, the business of comedy, and what makes this local comedy club unique. Please join me as we meet Jason McAdam. So I'm here with Jason McAdam. He's are you a business partner, or what's your role here?
Yeah, whenever people ask me about like what I do with Rose City Comedy, I normally just say I manage. I definitely book. I book the shows.
Yeah.
But I normally, just to kind of sum it up, I say I manage because I'll oversee any of the details about like the shows themselves. If there's going to be like any like minor sets to how the shows run, how the set looks, whatever, that kind of stuff. That's something like Shai and I will talk about and like get down to the bottom of.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So that's your kind of role here is manager.
Yeah, that's what the best way I think to sum it up.
So you're a manager, comedian. You have a daytime job, or is this your
I do,
gig
unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's that pesky day job's getting in the way of comedy. I'll tell you that. It's I just work. I work from home behind a computer doing casework for the Health and Human Services Commission.
Oh, okay.
It's just whatever. It's mostly just like kind of data entry and kind of it's predictable and it's 9 to 5 and stuff like that. I just have so much. I'm just so deep into trying to make comedy happen and doing comedy stuff that it's at times I'm trying to do both during the day and it just isn't working out.
Yeah.
So that's why I say it's pesky and it's in my way because I'm trying to do the thing that isn't paying me.
Yeah.
But man,
it's money versus the passion, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I guess let's go back to the beginning with you. How did the comedy start with you? Where did you find your interest in that?
Well, I mean, I've been into stand-up comedy in general, but like stand-up comedy particularly for a very long time. And it started with like seeing it. The way I was exposed to it is that my dad would like turn on something on like HBO and something, which he likes stand-up. He's not like a nerd about it like I am necessarily, but he would turn on like Louis C.K., George Carlin, or Jim Norton, just Louis Black, anyone who he thought he was funny, you just put up. And oftentimes I'd just be bored at the house and I'd just sit and just watch what he's watching. And anytime those specials would come on and he'd watch them, I'd really love watching them with him. And it was interesting to kind of see what made him laugh. And then that kind of sparked it. And then from there, once I started, like, I would go watch my own TV. I'd normally just go to like Comedy Central and just turn on the Comedy Central Presents, which is like the 30-minute sets. It's like, kind of like a half special on Comedy, and it's just like random comedians that like, they'll come on, and I would just watch a whole bunch of that. That's how the interest for it started, and then I almost didn't register that it was something that like you can do, like it's an option. It just seemed like they're doing it, and I don't know how. It's whatever, and then one day it became apparent whenever like a comedian I really like, Ari Shaffir, was coming to Austin while I was there. And whenever I saw that, I was like, oh, like, yeah, this is a live event. Like, I can go see that. Like, why am I not? I was like, for how much I like it, why have I never gone? So I went and saw it. I loved it. And he opened up with, like, the girl who hosted the show was a local comic in Austin. And she was very funny. But obviously, like, not up to the skill level of Ari Shaffir, his feature he brought with him. And so that was another thing that kind of told me, like, oh, like, yeah, like, there is a journey, there's a process to this. And then once I realized that there is kind of like that to it, that's what kind of started getting the gears turning in my head about doing it in my interest, because I've always loved comedy.
Yeah. So you mentioned you were in Austin at the time. So were you born and raised there, or
oh no,
how was that?
Born and raised East Texas, never left East Texas, kind of unfortunately. Not that I don't love East Texas, don't get me wrong. It's just that there, as far as like comedy and just, it's weird to say being worldly, and if I just moved to another city in Texas, but but it is changed. It is changed up different. You definitely can't deny it. Austin's a way different scene than East Texas, but No, I originally had a plan whenever I was like diving into comedy, making it, trying to make it a real thing for me. That my plan was to move down to Austin and to take it serious down there, and that was the plan. But then I met my now fiance, and once we met and we started kind of like dating some more, and one day she's like, "Well, I don't know how long, I was like, what are we gonna do? Like, you're gonna move to Austin?" And I was like, I'm not moving to Austin. Like, I'm not. Yeah. I can't. It's like I'm in too deep. So
yeah,
and that's kind of half, of the spark of like why we're doing like so much comedy in Tyler now. Is like it was a big part of me being like, well, I can't go to where the comedy is, so how do I make comedy happen where I am?
Yeah. So how old were you when you first decided, or how many years ago, or however you want to do that? Mm-hmm. When you first decided, like, I'm going to give this a shot and try it out?
The first time I tried it, I believe I was 22. The first time I tried it, I was 22, and I'd only done it, like, a few times. Like, it was, like, maybe 5 times or 6 times total over 3 months or so. And I didn't ever get the chance to do it, really. And just like almost everyone, it doesn't really go good the first time, but it went good enough where I got some chuckles on certain things, and it was enough for me to be excited to try it again and be like, I think I could do it better the next time and make them like really laugh. And so like even though I didn't like kill the first time, it was enough for me to like really want to keep at it. And but yeah, it was 22. Only those first few times, and then everything dropped off because all my opportunities had kind of went away for doing it. I moved. Because that was in Tyler, where there was already not like anything, just like little pop-up stuff, open mics here and there. And then I moved to Maybank, where there was absolutely nothing at all. And so that kind of killed it. Then whenever I moved back to Tyler, COVID happened. So there was like a year and a half where I didn't do comedy, but I was kind of sad because I really wanted to pursue it. But it kind of felt like there was no hope because I was like, I lived in a place where it didn't happen. And then eventually my fiance, who actually was really pushed me and kind of inspired me to be like, well, why don't you just do what you can? Like try something like it. And I did, and it turned into something pretty wild from that. From being just discouraged, like, oh, I can't do comedy, to, running a room and running shows weekly. And that's giving me opportunities to do shows in other cities. And yeah, it's been real cool. It's been a lot of fun.
Just wondering, like, so when you were younger, were you like the funny guy, or is...
Well,
just something that wasn't even in your mind?
Well, my whole friend group we're all funny. Like everyone, like, for the most part, like my friend group was seen, like, as far as the clique of them was like seen as like the stoners, which makes sense because we're all also metalheads, and we all had long hair, but we're also goofy as hell, and we love so we're always just saying stuff. And so in any class, whether we're together, especially if we're together, it's we're just cutting up and we're trying to make other people laugh and stuff. Yeah. And so, like, it was like me and my friends were all just constantly joking and just goofing off, basically. And, and then same thing, even whenever I was, like, extra young, even before, like, getting in with that friend group being, like, 10 and 11, there would be the occasional moment in class where I'd say something that'd make the classroom laugh. And it was, like, something that, like, hit me in a spot where I'm like, yeah, I like that.
Don't you love that one?
Yeah. And that's something I put together later, like, after I started doing comedy. Like, any time in my life, like, before doing comedy, most especially, any time in my life where, like, I had said something and it made someone laugh, and it was like a good... like I killed on whatever like joke I came up with in the moment or whatever. It was like that memory like lodged itself in my head where I'm like, I'm not forgetting, because it just felt so good and I love the feeling of it. And now I do comedy. I'm like, oh well, no wonder. That's how no wonder I'm doing this. Like it's just part of who I am.
Dopamine hit every time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So how because you kind of mentioned getting started here. So how'd that work out with you and Shy? How'd y'all?
Mm-hmm. Well, what had happened was before Shy had taken over this place, because Shy Blakeman, guy you previously interviewed, he owns Rose City Comedy, and he owns like this building. But when we came into it, it wasn't Rose City Comedy yet. What had happened was back whenever like I first started it, back in whenever it was, 2019 I think. And I did it those first couple times. It was here, but like next door in this little tiny room. Mm-hmm. And this guy who had it was running, quite frankly, really shitty attempt at a comedy like club or room or whatever. and it was like these really wacky, uncomfortable like type of shows. But I was just so eager to see comedy and to try comedy that I was coming and showing up and doing, getting up and doing the mics and stuff. So that was like how I got my start, was here with that. And then I left, came back, like I said. By the time I came back, he was still doing shows. It was like very scarce though. It'd be like every, like maybe 1-2 a month maybe. But I decided I was going to jump back into it. So I'm like, well, I was like, I know it's really bad, like what he's got going. I was like, but it's all I got and it's a starting place, so let's do it. And like right as soon as I jumped in and I showed him that I cared about it, like right immediately, he was like, oh, well, I'm about to, sell this to Shai anyway. So like, and then Shai came to me, and originally he was like not even like, because he was just trying his best to make the other half of the business work, because it was like half. One side of the building was the comedy, one side of the building was like iPhone repairs. And he was like, I don't have the time and energy to be able to keep a comedy club going, but I'd really love to see it doing that, because Shai also loves comedy. And, he kind of like poked at doing it for a while at the beginning. So he asked me to do it, and I was like, okay, like if this is what it takes. And it kind of like fell on my lap, like this opportunity I was kind of wanting. And so that's where it kind of took off. And so he just let me have and so like I just went in that room, and it had like just shit and junk everywhere on the walls, on the floor. And so I cleared it all out, cleaned it up, made it look as decent as we could with like the no money that was available. Yeah. And it's all just taken off from there. It's just been chipping away little bits at a time, taking bites out the elephant, I guess.
Yeah. So you mentioned like that it was kind of wacky over there. So what's different about this than any other comedy club you've been to?
It's hard to explain. I mean, even now with this, it's hard to call this like a comedy like club. Yeah. Because a typical club has, for one, even like tables. Like we just have like row seating, which is I guess technically closer to a theater.
So maybe it's a comedy room.
Yeah, I'll call it a venue. I think technically calling it, like, if we called it an independent theater, like, that might be a little bit of stretch, but that's kind of accurate as well. But yeah, for the most part, I just say it's the room. Yeah. Like, if I ask comics, like, hey, will you come play my room? Or it's our venues, Rose City Comedy. I kind of avoid calling it a club most of the time. Just because a club, it'll have like a hostess, and it'll have like a wait staff that's like taking your drink orders, and then they'll have food and things like that. And they have a little bit more proper set. Like, we can't get it so dark in here, where a club, it is really, it's very dark. It's got a very like feeling to it, where even though it's comedy and it's all silly for the most part, jokes, there is a feeling that it is a club. Yeah. Where this room, it's not quite that. Wasn't even that. Yeah. Whenever it was that old thing, it was
a closet.
it was absolutely a closet. It was always the easy joke to make about the room that kind of broke the tension. There was benefits to that, to doing comedy in that room, period. But yeah, it was because it was easy to break that tension, because the people walked. That was the problem, is that it was. You could tell that a mentally unstable person put it together. Essentially, it just, nothing in there made sense. Everything looked bad. Just random, just shit thrown everywhere on the wall, like stuff that like he thought made sense, but everyone else was like, "What is that? Like, what is?" Yeah. It was so much that it's hard to even explain. I got pictures I'll show people sometimes where I'm like, this is like, you should just look at it because it's so weird.
I'll have to see those later.
Absolutely. But no, yeah, so it was just whack. It was a problem. And this was one thing I recognized whenever I was going there, and I was like meeting up with like friends who also would be interested in doing comedy or trying to get something going. And I would tell them, my goal from the start was like, all right, well, first I want to get like a community going here of like people who want to do comedy, because I know they exist. I just got to find them. But the other priority on top of that was to try to make sure that if people showed up to that room, that they didn't leave with an icky feeling. Yeah. Because it was so weird and bad, both on the inside and outside looking, that people would show up and be like, is this it? And then they open the door and walk in and are like, I don't know if this is it. Yeah. And then someone would be, hey, you're here for a comedy? And then like, it's like, it might as well have had a steel trap door shut behind them, because they're like, because they're already there. And and so it's like hard to say no. It's like, okay, here's $10 or however much it is, and it's like, okay, I guess we're gonna see what this is. And then they go up, and then like the guy wouldn't even have like comics booked. It would be himself. Whoever would literally show up in the crowd, he would just ask people in the crowd, like, you want to do it? Which isn't a show. It's a scam essentially. Is what it all. And then like, and there's one guy who he would rely on who is legitimately funny. He's a very good comic. We have him back all the time. Named Harold Keaton. Who he lives around here, although I think he's from like Arkansas. And he would call him in to headline whenever he needed a guy. But other than that, it was just like it was no good. Everything else beside that was bad. And so I was like, the problem is like, although not too many people know it exists, and that's kind of good for us because we need people not know that was there. I was like, more importantly, I need to make sure that we fix whatever reputation's been messed up. And because there's also because we get comics from Shreveport, Dallas, Fort Worth, and like Austin, mostly. And we had kind of a bad reputation. Tyler, Texas, for going on the road as like any of those comics from other cities would call it, going on the road to do a show. Tyler, just don't even do it. Don't bother because it's bad.
Yeah.
Awful experience. And that just kept being the reputation. So I was like, well, we got to fix that because like that's where we're going to get our talent from if we're going to do it. And so the goal was to try to make it as presentable as possible, the best that we can with the limited amount of resources, and bring in the best talent that we can that will agree to do it at first. And so immediately we changed it around a lot where it's like, because even though like it was still like not spectacular, there was something that was kind of like quaint about it, and something like you could tell that like we were really just bootstrapping it. Yeah. And then we also brought like legitimate like good comedy to back it up, so people were actually having a good time at the shows, despite it not being like the most ideal room. And so I don't know, we got people's trust really fast. I kind of got off track, forgot where I was going with all this. I'm just going through the story of it, really.
Yeah. No, that's fine. So.
Oh, sorry. The one thing I was trying to say that I was going to get to is that people would leave, and it's one thing if like people didn't enjoy the experience, but it's like the thing is bad press and bad like just having bad things to say is going to spread way more than having a good experience. It's unfortunate, but that's just how it goes. So these people, the few people that would show up, came, and then they go tell everybody like, you won't believe this crazy fucking show that I went and saw, and then just trash the place, and as they should. Yeah. And so I was like, we gotta scratch off that reputation. We just gotta like restart from the ground, let people know that it's just something else, and just do what we can.
So how did you go about doing that? Did you come up with a plan, or was it completely punk rock DIY?
For the most part, punk rock DIY, because it's like I would put my own like personal money in it, but it's like I didn't have a lot to give either. But it'd be like little things like in that room there was no spotlight, and like there's so many like little fickle things in comedy where if like someone like a comic could be wearing the wrong shirt and it's distracting, and now his jokes aren't hitting as well. It literally could be that small. Mm-hmm. And so like one of the like most basic simple things is try to get the room as dark as you can, and only like have the stage lit up for the most part. So that way it's like you kind of like you're forced to pay attention to what's going on there, versus like if you have the light on the whole room, like even if you don't notice it, like you're kind of like picking up the peripherals of everything else. And so like one of the first basic things they did where I was like, all right, well I spent like $30 of my own money to buy what's actually like a floor lamp from Walmart and a type of like a type of ceiling light that's like flat to make like a makeshift spotlight. That worked great. It worked way better because beforehand there's like these also terrible like trailer park looking ceiling fans in there, and that's what he was using for a light. It just so it looked awful. So we just so it'd be like little things like that. Whereas like I just did the tiniest little things I could here and there, and with each show we were able to do a little bit more, spruce it up just a tiny bit more. And up to the point where we have an actual TV that does nothing but show a sign, and that's pretty impressive. Man, considering how I was like, man, I guess I could spare the $30 on a light.
Now I got a whole TV just for a sign.
It's kind of remarkable. I'm like, dude, yeah.
So, I guess what would you say this place has to offer that other places don't?
Well, I mean, just like live entertainment for the most part. Because I mean, like other than here, there's the Liberty Hall Theater, like just a couple blocks away. Because we're in downtown as well. There's the Liberty Hall Theater that does their shows, but that's not like a regular weekly basis. I don't think it's kind of just like whenever shows come up, then they'll host the show there and stuff, which is cool. But it's like we have like a weekly basis. You can come see a show with us. And it's BYOB, so that helps make it inexpensive by a lot. And also the fact that it's not like going to be the same exact thing every time you see it too, because it's like, the problem with going and seeing the same comic 2 times, like without it being like at least a year more apart, like you're probably going to see a lot of the same jokes possibly. And that's one of the benefits to ours is like we're aware of that, and so whenever we book people, I just book it to where the lineup is absolutely different every show, other than maybe myself hosting, but that's not quite as important because I'm only up there for like 10 minutes, and so it's like it's not too bad. Although I try to switch up myself as well if I can. But yeah, no, it's just live entertainment, being able to regularly see some like good comedy, because these aren't like I'm not just like asking any kind of just schmo to come out here to do. Yeah. It was kind of the case at first, not gonna lie, but once we built a reputation, once we built a reputation, and now and now it's basically like all the comics like want to come check out this room, and now like I can actually afford to bring consistently really good people.
Why do you think that is that comics want to come here?
A few reasons. One, the room is fun. And although the room is fun, we treat them good. Like we make sure, like we always let them know just like how much we appreciate them. And the crowds we get here in Tyler are fucking awesome, because they give them the attention, which is all you can really ask for. Whenever it's like, obviously as a comedian we want them to laugh, but that's kind of your job to do it. Yeah. And so like they give them the attention. They don't really heckle. Like that's like hardly ever is a problem for us. And overall, they just have a good experience where they're able to get up on stage and they get to do like a full set that's a little bit harder to get in the cities, because in the cities it's not totally dog eat dog, because they are supportive of each other, but it's limited the amount of stage time you can get, and so that's something that's just like gotten around where people get excited to hear that. They get excited to hear it's a good room and that we are reasonable people, that we're nice. And that's enough for them to be like, all right, I want to go do that. Because comics, oftentimes, they're normally like looking forward to go on the road, to go to a different city, try to do comedy. Yeah, it's a good experience, and it helps you as a comic by a lot to do it.
So speaking of going on the road and like your personal comedy career, do you do much going to other clubs and stuff, or are you pretty tied down managing here?
I try to as much as I can, but it's kind of a hard balance, because it's there's like lots of stuff I have to do here. So like in order for me to be able to go book my own show somewhere else, I have to make sure someone can like host for me, or that it can be taken care of like this. And there's like, I also do other things as well, other than just like host the shows. I also, as another like benefit to the comics, I record all of their sets so that way I can send it to them, and that's good for them like to post clips and stuff, and that's really valuable for them. So I make sure I'm recording the sets, and I have to do that between each set. I have to make sure that I also take pictures, so I have a camera and I'll run around like taking pictures like during their sets and everything. So like I have to make sure that all these jobs are taken care of if I'm going to leave. So it's kind of hard sometimes. But when I can, I go out of town, do shows. Like I'll go to, I've been to either same places, Dallas, Shreveport, Austin. Hope to make my way down to Houston sometime soon, but for now, that's about it. Those are the places where every now and then, if I can squeeze in the time, I'll book shows out there and drive out to do it.
Yeah. So how hard, since Austin is with several comedians moving here, become sort of the new LA down there, how hard is it to get a spot down there?
Really hard. Really, really hard. I was actually just talking to another a comic friend who was on this last show about it, because he just earlier this year he moved from Dallas to Austin, and I asked him what he thought about the scene. And for him, he'd been doing it for like at the time when he moved like a little over a year, and he said that for someone, and I understand this completely, because like the amount of I haven't done too much comedy in Austin as much as I would like, because I love Austin as a city. But he said for someone new into comedy, it's insanely hard to break through, because it's like because the only way you get practice is to get up on stage, go to the open mics. And for anyone that hasn't been to a comedy open mic, pretty often they're depressing. They don't go good because most of the time it's almost exclusively comics that are in the crowd, and then they're not paying attention to what you're doing. They're just they're in their own notes, they're in their own heads thinking about what they're gonna do. So they're not giving up anything for you because they're not paying attention to you at all. And so it's hard to even figure out what is funny, like what works. And then on top of that, it's hard to show people that you're funny. So it takes a lot to be able to break out those open mics to get even just a quick 3-5 minute guest spot on a real show. So that way you can really oh, here's a chance. Hopefully I can.
Yeah.
So it's so hard because those open mic lists, it's it'll be for real anywhere from 40 to 60 people signing up, and then you get 4 minutes max. And it's just for people that aren't paying attention. It's hard. It's so hard. And it's hard anywhere. Dallas is a little bit it's not quite as saturated in Dallas, but Austin is because people are flooding there. So you got the people who are from Texas, but then you also have people who move from LA or people who move from New York. And you get a lot of those transplants of people who are also just trying to hopefully do it. But yeah, when I was talking to that comedian friend of mine, he said that he's not been liking it so much for that reason. It's hard to kind of get anything happen there.
Yeah.
And so he's in a position where he's able to move back to Dallas because he had to move out of necessity the first time.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's probably cheaper in Dallas now than Austin.
Yeah, I'm sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I love Austin. It's a fun place. But yeah, if you're starting comedy there, people will say. I mean, I listen to so much comedy podcasts, and any professional comedian will tell you that it's really hard to get started if it's going to be in New York or in LA for that same exact reason.
Yeah.
It's almost easier to get better outside than bring your way after you've kind of gotten seasoned at it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know if you'd have much insight into that, but do you have to be in one of those major cities in order to move your way up the chain, or?
The only reason why I'd say I do have any kind of knowledge on that is because we have two great examples here in Tyler, both Brandon Davidson and Tyler Elliott. Tyler Elliott's going to be here tonight, by the way, open mic. Which is going to be fun because they both been doing it for over 10 years, and they're both really, really good, and they're well respected in the DFW area, but they're both from Tyler, Texas.
Yeah.
And so that's something that's really good for me, and it's really good for all the other local comics here in Tyler and East Texas to have them as kind of a bit of a shining light. I'm okay, I have an idea on how I can make this work and how I can kind of work my way, because they're coming from Tyler, and they would just drive out to Dallas whenever they could to do open mics back when they were getting started. And slowly but surely, they kept working at it. They kept pushing their way, and now they're well respected to the point where they're both seen as some of the better comics you can see in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and they can headline their own shows in that area, or even Arkansas, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And so it's definitely possible, and I only know that because of them. If it wasn't for them, I'd be maybe you have to move. I don't.
Yeah.
I wouldn't. It'd be hard to say.
Yeah, that'd be kind of interesting. I wonder if I could get an interview with one of them, see what that's like. But
I'm sure at least one of them would be down. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you can introduce me later.
Yeah.
Anyway,
sure. Tyler will be here. So
since you've already had these kind of big names here, I would kind of like to ask this. So first, what are your top 3 comics? And then who would your top 3 for getting booked here, having a show here?
Oh, if it was a dream, infinite budget kind of thing.
Yeah, infinite budget.
Yeah. Well, as far as picking a top 3, I'm really hard at picking definitive favorites. But yeah. I'll say 2 of my favorites right now, currently doing it, is Nate Bargatze's huge to me, and Shane Gillis.
Yeah.
Probably Mark Norman after him. If I had to narrow it down to 3, but it's the list is so long. There's so many people. Any one of those 3, I'd probably go if I had to pick top person I'd want to book if I had an infinite budget.
Yeah,
it would probably be Nate.
And what about if you could raise the dead too?
Oh, raise the dead. Oh, if that's the case, I don't know. Probably George Carlin, even though I feel to be honest, I feel a lot of people that are closer to my generation have a hard. It's getting to the point where George Carlin is getting to be so old that the younger crowds are I don't quite get it.
Yeah.
And which I do understand when I go back and watch it, but I have such a personal connection with. He's one of those first big comics I saw on TV that got me into comedy, and And I remember whenever he died, I was probably like 14, maybe not even. I might have been 13 or 12 even. Whenever George Carlin died, and HBO just like ran like just a marathon over the weekend of like his specials, and I just like that's what I spent the weekend doing was watching George Carlin specials. Yeah. So even if Raising Them Dead, then it'd probably be him just because I have such that personal kind of like connection with my love for him and stuff. But obviously, he's one of the greats. So
yeah. That was me when Norm Macdonald died. I probably spent a week on YouTube watching this.
Yeah, that was a hard one. That was a heavy one, yeah.
Yeah. Trying to think, is there anything you'd like to close this out with? Anything you want to talk about or plug? Or I mean, this isn't going to come out till like January or February probably, so that's kind of hard to do. But
yeah, it's fine. Most of where you can catch me doing a show is here at Rose City Comedy. Most weekends I'm normally hosting. I will say one big event we got coming up that I'm very excited for. When did you say this is coming out again?
Well, depending on it's probably gonna be late January, February.
Oh, okay. Oh, well then never mind. I was gonna say the New Year's Eve show, but that's fine. It's totally fine.
Here, I'll do it special. I'll put out a New Year's Eve special for you, like a couple days before, and you can get my audience of 25 people.
There we go. Yeah. We'll take them. The beauty of this room, it doesn't take too much to fill it up. We top out at like 46.
Yeah, we got 49? About 25 chairs right here.
Yeah. But, we're doing a New Year's Eve show with a very hilarious stand-up comedian, Dean Stanfield. He's from Austin. He's one of those comics that like always gets booked to feature for the big guys coming in. So he's like featured for Mark Norman and what's his name? Sam Tripoli, big names. Yeah. Like bigger headlining names like that. He's also been blown up on TikTok. He has like 2 separate videos that have gotten over millions of views. And so he's very, very funny. And I'm excited for that show, both to have him, and I'm also excited to host for him on that show as well. And so that's going to be a big event. We're going to do a countdown and everything. So it'll be a real fun show. Other than that, I don't really have there's no real reason to try to plug the other shows that I got, to be honest. Just Rose City Comedy. If you follow us on social media, that helps us a ton, and like just the spreading the word. If you come to a show and you want to let people know you had a good time, that helps us massively. That's like ultimately what getting people in the door counts on. Yeah. So.
Well, that's awesome, man. Thanks for sitting down, doing another interview with me. And,
absolutely.
Well, not another interview for you, but
yeah,
in the store, in
the Rose City Comedy universe.
Yeah, we're in the universe of
RCCU.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, thank you very much. Awesome. Kind of like that video you just watched, huh? Go ahead and like and subscribe and share it if you liked it. If you didn't like it, it's a free country at the end of the day. Oh, you did? Oh, thanks. Yeah. Yeah. Cool.